It was a day like any other when the sky darkened with a presence humanity had never known. At first, it was just a faint speck, so small it seemed like a trick of the eye. But in moments, the speck grew, expanding rapidly as a massive fleet of alien ships emerged from the depths of space, their gleaming metallic hulls reflecting the sunlight in sharp contrast to the overcast sky. They didn't just arrive. They appeared as if they had been waiting, poised for the moment they would finally strike. The world's military satellites detected the anomaly first. Within minutes, every government on Earth was scrambling to assess the situation. Communications came in from every corner of the globe, all reporting the same thing. Massive, unfamiliar ships descending onto major cities. The air went cold. There was no sign of aggression yet, just a quiet, ominous arrival. Then came the voice. The message was broadcast globally in every language, direct and chilling. A tall, silver-skinned figure appeared on every screen, its eyes glowing like twin suns. "People of Earth," it began, its voice unnervingly calm. "We are the Zerax, rulers of 1,000 worlds. You have been found wanting, and your time is up. Surrender your cities and bow to your new overlords, or you will be wiped from existence. Choose wisely." The broadcast ended with a sharp click, and silence fell over Earth. People sat frozen in front of their screens, paralyzed by the weight of the aliens' words. Leaders scrambled to respond. Emergency meetings were called, but none of them could offer an immediate answer. How do you respond to an invasion by a race that already controlled the skies? It seemed impossible. Earth's most powerful weapons were but toys compared to the sheer scale of the Zerax fleet. As fear gripped the world, the alien ships didn't wait for a response. The Zerax were swift and efficient. They deployed smaller crafts that glided effortlessly through the skies, scanning and analyzing Earth's military bases, energy grids, and communication networks. They seemed to know everything about Earth before they even arrived, and that knowledge made them even more dangerous. It was as if they had been planning this invasion for centuries, anticipating every move. Despite the overwhelming power of the invaders, one thing became clear: humanity wasn't going to surrender easily. As governments debated whether to try to fight back or negotiate, one voice among the chaos stood out: General Caroline Walker of the United States military. "We may not have their power, but we have something they don't," she said. "We have the will to fight, and they've just made the mistake of underestimating us." Her words resonated with people all over the world. They weren't ready to go down without a fight. The alien ships hovered above Earth, casting an enormous shadow, but the spark of human defiance was beginning to light the way. As the Zerax fleet loomed above Earth, the initial shock began to wear off, and a new sense of urgency took hold. Governments, military leaders, and civilians alike were thrown into action. The world was suddenly united by a single, terrifying enemy. But in the chaos of the invasion, a quiet determination began to emerge. People who had once been divided by borders and politics now stood side by side, working together toward a common goal: survival. Across the globe, military forces scrambled to mobilize, but it became clear within hours that their weapons were ineffective. The Zerax ships were impervious to anything humanity had to offer. Laser weapons, missiles, and even experimental anti-ship technology barely left a scratch. The aliens made it clear they weren't interested in diplomacy. They were here to dominate, and they would give Earth no time to prepare for the inevitable. But then, something remarkable happened. In the midst of the panic, the world's scientific community began to focus their collective intellect on a single task: finding a weakness in the Zerax technology. Dr. Lily Carter, a physicist specializing in energy fields, stumbled upon an anomaly in the alien ship's energy signatures. After working tirelessly, she realized that the Zerax's power source, though incredibly advanced, relied on a specific frequency that could potentially be disrupted by human-made technology. Dr. Carter wasn't the only one working around the clock. Across the globe, engineers, computer scientists, and military tacticians joined forces to reverse engineer the Zirax technology they had already gathered from the failed assaults. As they pieced together alien tech from the wreckage of damaged crafts, they realized something astonishing. Humans weren't as outmatched as they thought. Though their tech was nowhere near the Zirax level, the ingenuity that defined humanity began to shine through. Meanwhile, the alien invaders seemed content with their initial strikes. The destruction of several major cities was meant to break humanity's spirit, but it did the opposite. Around the world, people took to the streets, determined to push back. It wasn't just the military now. Civilians, engineers, and tech enthusiasts began organizing their own resistance. They hacked into the global communication networks, sending out encrypted messages, sharing vital data, and coordinating efforts to slow the aliens' advance. In Washington, D.C., General Caroline Walker met with her counterparts from across the world. "We don't need to fight them with their weapons," she said, her voice steady but filled with fire. "We need to fight them with our minds, our creativity. That's what makes us human." It was a turning point. Humanity had learned something vital. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, their greatest weapon wasn't brute force. It was the human spirit, the willingness to fight back, adapt, and think outside the box. The Zirax may have been powerful, but they had underestimated the resilience of a species that refused to be silenced. And now, humanity's spark of resistance had turned into something much bigger, a glimmer of hope that they could, indeed, fight back. The early victories were small, but they ignited something in the hearts of humans that the Zirax had never anticipated: resilience. As Earth's governments and military forces began to adapt to the alien threat, a guerrilla movement took root. People from all walks of life, farmers, students, mechanics, scientists, began to organize resistance cells, using their knowledge of the land and cities to strike at the aliens in ways they hadn't been prepared for. One of the first major successes came from a group of civilians in Paris, where they used a combination of makeshift explosives and hacked Zirax tech to disrupt an alien patrol. They had no advanced weapons, no starships or war machines, just ordinary tools and their wits. The Zirax, who had assumed they could simply march over any resistance, were taken off guard. What began as a small skirmish quickly escalated into a network of attacks across the city, as local citizens made use of the urban landscape, laying traps and ambushes. Meanwhile, Earth's military forces weren't sitting idly by. General Caroline Walker had assembled an international task force of soldiers and strategists, united by the same purpose: to take back what the Zirax had taken from them. The aliens had believed Earth to be weak, but now they saw the cunning and resourcefulness of humanity up close. The Zirax's fleet, still hovering over the planet, seemed almost to ignore the insurgencies popping up below them. They viewed the attacks as mere annoyances, insignificant attempts at resistance. But what the aliens didn't realize was that each skirmish, each ambush, was teaching humanity more about their technology. Humans had begun to understand the weaknesses in the Zirax ship's energy shields, their communication systems, and even the algorithms the aliens used to track targets. A breakthrough came when a group of engineers in Mexico City successfully intercepted a Zirax transmission and deciphered part of their encrypted communications. They discovered that the alien ships relied heavily on centralized command, and if the humans could take out key communication nodes, the aliens would be left in disarray. The next move was bold. A group of elite soldiers and engineers from the United States, alongside international allies, launched a daring raid on a Zirax command hub in South America. The plan was simple: disable their communication systems and cause chaos among the invaders. Under the cover of night, they infiltrated the facility, using stealth and precision to disable energy shields and hack into alien systems. The raid was a success, but at a cost. Several soldiers didn't make it out alive. However, the mission was a game-changer. News of the attack spread like wildfire. Humanity was no longer passive. They had found a way to fight back, not just with force, but with cunning and strategy. The Jarax had miscalculated their most dangerous enemy, not just humans' ability to fight, but their endless creativity. And now, every alien who set foot on Earth would know this truth. Humanity would not be conquered without a fight. As the Jarax regrouped, confident that their overwhelming firepower would eventually crush the human resistance, something unexpected happened. Earth's scientific community, propelled by desperation, and the insights gained from the alien technology scavenged during previous skirmishes, made a breakthrough. Dr. Lily Carter, the physicist who had first identified a weakness in the alien energy field, had finally cracked it. The Jarax's power source, while vastly superior to anything humans had ever seen, was not invulnerable. It was highly sensitive to specific electromagnetic pulses, a frequency that could disrupt its stability. The discovery sent waves of excitement and hope through humanity's ranks. Now there was a weapon they could use, a way to level the playing field. It wasn't much, but it was a start. And the idea of defeating an advanced alien empire with something as simple as a frequency manipulation device ignited a new fire in the hearts of people across the globe. Working tirelessly, teams of engineers and military strategists from all over the world combined their resources to refine the design. Their goal was clear: build a device capable of generating the precise frequency needed to incapacitate the Jarax's energy shields. The problem was time. The Jarax were no longer toying with Earth. They had begun to launch massive coordinated attacks on Earth's remaining strongholds, aiming to wipe out resistance once and for all. As humanity worked feverishly to build the new weapon, the aliens began their assault on London. Their massive ships hovered ominously over the city, ready to unleash their devastating firepower. It seemed that the human fight might soon be over, but just as the Jarax prepared to strike, a shadow of defiance moved across the battlefield. A small, specialized team of soldiers led by General Caroline Walker was ready to implement the new weapon. They had risked everything to deliver it to the heart of the conflict, knowing full well the odds were stacked against them. Their mission was simple: disable the Jarax fleet's energy shields, using the newly developed technology, and make the attack on London a turning point in the war. The device, while still experimental, was loaded onto a drone fitted with jammers and electromagnetic emitters. Its mission was clear: get close enough to the Jarax fleet's energy field to deploy the pulse and knock out their defenses. The plan was a dangerous one. No one knew for sure if the pulse would work, if it would be strong enough, or if it would even reach the alien ships in time. As the drone soared toward the heart of the fleet, the tension was palpable. The Jarax, still confident in their superiority, didn't expect an attack of this nature. The drone was almost at its target when an alien fighter squadron detected it and began to close in. But just as the Jarax prepared to strike down the drone, it released its pulse. A shockwave rippled through the alien fleet's shields, rendering them useless. For the first time since the invasion began, the Jarax fleet was vulnerable. The plan worked. The human weapon had succeeded. The ripple effect was immediate. Earth's forces, who had been waiting for this moment, launched a coordinated counterattack. The Jarax, caught off guard by the sudden breach, scrambled to regain control, but it was too late. Humanity had found its first victory, and the tide of the war had begun to shift. What was once thought impossible, a victory over the invaders, was now within reach. The Jarax had underestimated the ingenuity and determination of humanity, and it was a mistake they would soon come to regret. The unexpected success of the electromagnetic pulse weapon was a turning point, but it also marked the beginning of a new phase in the war. The Jarax, humiliated and enraged, quickly adapted. They no longer underestimated humanity's capacity for defiance, and their response was swift and brutal. The alien fleet launched a full-scale assault, targeting the most populated and strategic cities around the world, intent on breaking the will of Earth's resistance. They were determined to erase any hope humans had of pushing them back. The cities of Paris, New York, and Tokyo were hit hardest. Massive explosions rocked the skyline as Zirax warships fired devastating energy beams, reducing entire districts to rubble. Alien ground forces, heavily armored and terrifyingly efficient, descended on the streets, hunting down resistance fighters and civilians alike. It seemed that the Zirax had finally come to claim victory. But humanity, bruised but not broken, refused to cower in fear. The assault on Earth's major cities only strengthened human resolve. People from every corner of the globe rose up, using their knowledge of local terrain, buildings, and urban environments to launch hit-and-run attacks on the invaders. Resistance fighters, many of them civilians, fought with the ingenuity and resourcefulness that had served them so well in the early days of the war. Guerrilla tactics became the norm as humans used whatever they had on hand: homemade explosives, hacked alien tech, even improvised traps, to slow the Zirax advance. They no longer feared the overwhelming might of the invaders. Instead, they used that power against them, exploiting the aliens' reliance on rigid military tactics and centralized command. General Caroline Walker, now regarded as a symbol of hope, coordinated an international counteroffensive, using the information gathered from previous raids and the disruption caused by the electromagnetic pulse weapon. Earth's forces launched a series of attacks designed to stretch the Zirax military thin. Human soldiers, now supported by highly skilled resistance groups, took to the skies and the ground in small, highly mobile units, harassing the alien forces and preventing them from consolidating control over major territories. But the Zirax had something else in mind. They began to target Earth's global communication systems, attempting to sever the interconnectedness that had allowed humanity to unite against them. With each strike, they aimed to isolate human forces, cutting off the flow of intelligence and coordination that had been key to their success. It became clear that the aliens would do whatever it took to crush Earth's ability to fight back. The war had entered a critical stage. Earth was no longer fighting for mere survival. It was fighting for its future. As the Zirax pressed harder, humanity's efforts to regroup and counterattack became more desperate. Each victory felt hard-won, and every loss was felt deeply. But Earth's unity, forged in the fire of adversity, remained unshaken. The Zirax were pushing harder, but they were also showing cracks. The sense of invincibility they once carried had begun to erode, replaced by an unease that rippled through their ranks. They had underestimated humanity once, and now they were beginning to see the full scope of the mistake they had made. The stakes had never been higher, but Earth was not ready to surrender. Not now, not ever. The Zirax had believed that breaking humanity's backbone would be a simple task, but the longer the war raged on, the clearer it became that they had underestimated the most unpredictable weapon of all: the human spirit. Their overwhelming technological superiority had done little to quell the growing resistance. In fact, each devastating attack they launched seemed only to fuel the fire burning in Earth's people. The Zirax had expected to crush humanity's resolve by targeting cities, reducing them to rubble, and demonstrating their overwhelming power. But in the face of destruction, humanity's ingenuity and resourcefulness began to shine brighter than ever. It wasn't just soldiers and resistance fighters holding the line anymore. It was ordinary people, too. Factory workers, farmers, teachers, and even children all contributed in whatever ways they could. People who had never held a weapon in their lives became crucial to the resistance efforts, finding ways to disrupt alien operations, hack into Zirax systems, and sabotage supply lines. One example came from the heart of the United States, where a group of high school students had managed to infiltrate an abandoned Zirax supply depot. Using knowledge they'd learned in their technology classes, they'd reprogrammed alien surveillance drones to send false signals, leading them into a trap set by local resistance fighters. They weren't soldiers, but their determination and ability to think on their feet made them vital players in the ongoing fight. As the war spread across the globe, people from every nation came together, sharing resources, intelligence, and strategies. What was once a fragmented response to the invasion became a unified effort. In the slums of Mumbai, Underground resistance cells hacked into Jarax's networks, causing chaos within the invaders' communications. In the icy wilderness of Siberia, small guerrilla units struck with precision, ambushing alien supply convoys that were vital to the invaders' supply chain. Even the smallest acts of defiance, cutting off a supply of alien energy cells, destroying the Jarax transmitter, began to add up. Yet it wasn't just the tactical ingenuity that struck fear into the Jarax. It was the sheer refusal to give in. Despite the constant bombardment, despite the heavy casualties and widespread destruction, humanity did not surrender. People would mourn their losses, but they would not relent. Every time a city fell, another would rise up. Every time a fighter fell, another would take their place. A pivotal moment came in the skies over Paris, where an elite team of pilots, flying repurposed civilian aircraft, managed to take down a Jarax dropship by exploiting a weak spot in its armor. The victory wasn't just symbolic. It was a clear message to the Jarax that Earth was not going to break. The battle over Paris would go down in history as a turning point, not because of the firepower involved, but because of the collective will of the people fighting back, with no regard for how impossible the task seemed. The Jarax had assumed humanity's spirit would crumble under pressure, that their superior technology and ruthless tactics would bring Earth to its knees. But now, they were learning an important lesson. Humans didn't give up. They fought, adapted, and never stopped believing in the possibility of victory. And as the alien invaders began to realize the depth of their miscalculation, the tide began to turn. It was no longer a question of if humans would succeed, but when The Jarax were about to discover that humanity's greatest strength was not in their weapons, but in their unyielding resolve. The true battle had only just begun. With the tide beginning to shift, the Jarax were no longer the unstoppable force they once believed themselves to be. Humanity had proven that they could adapt, fight back, and above all, never give up. The once imposing alien invaders had now found themselves in a precarious position, and they were running out of time. The Jarax, despite their superior technology and vast fleet, had always relied on a strict military hierarchy. Their entire strategy was based on overwhelming force, leaving little room for deviation from their plans. What they hadn't counted on was humanity's ability to improvise and adjust under pressure. Now, their perfect chain of command was beginning to fray at the edges. The resistance, bolstered by each successive victory, had begun to implement a new strategy, targeting the heart of the Jarax leadership. If they could dismantle the command structure, the aliens would be left vulnerable. It wasn't enough to simply disable their shields or attack their ships. They needed to strike at the core of the invasion, to destabilize the very force that coordinated the entire operation. General Caroline Walker, now leading a coalition of military forces from across the world, devised a daring plan. Using data gathered from previous attacks and the insights provided by Dr. Lily Carter's discoveries, Earth's forces identified the location of the Jarax flagship, the command center of the invasion fleet, hidden deep within the alien armada. This was where their greatest vulnerability lay. The flagship was heavily defended, surrounded by layers of advanced weaponry and shields, but it was the key to ending the war. If they could neutralize it, the rest of the alien forces would be left leaderless and in disarray. To carry out this mission, Walker assembled a crack team of soldiers, engineers, and pilots, a diverse group of humanity's finest. Their mission was as simple as it was dangerous: infiltrate the flagship, disable its command systems, and bring down the heart of the Jarax invasion. There was no room for error. If they failed, it could mean the end of Earth's resistance. In the days leading up to the mission, the world held its breath. The Jarax were aware of the growing resistance, and they began to tighten their grip on Earth. Major cities were heavily fortified, and alien patrols intensified. The tension in the air was palpable, as everyone understood that this would be the defining moment of the war. As Walker's team launched their assault on the Jarax flagship, they faced resistance unlike anything they had encountered before. The aliens had grown more vigilant, their soldiers more ruthless. But humanity's determination was unwavering. With each step closer to the flagship's heart, the stakes grew higher. There could be no turning back now. The final confrontation would be brutal, but it would also mark the moment when humanity took control of its fate. The Jarax had miscalculated, believing that Earth's greatest strength lay in its weapons. What they didn't understand was that humanity's true weapon was its unwavering resolve to protect its future, no matter the cost. This was the moment that would determine whether Earth would be claimed by the invaders, or whether humanity would rise victorious. The Jarax flagship loomed before them, a massive, unyielding fortress amidst the stars. General Caroline Walker's team, a ragtag collection of the best humanity had to offer, infiltrated the alien ship with precision. Their mission was simple but perilous. Disable the flagship's command center, bring down the heart of the invasion, and shatter the Jarax's stranglehold on Earth. As they infiltrated deeper into the ship's core, the tension was palpable. The fate of Earth hung in the balance. Inside the flagship, the resistance fighters faced unimaginable obstacles. Alien drones patrolled every hallway, their cold, mechanical eyes scanning for intruders. Jarax soldiers, heavily armored and vicious, were stationed at every strategic point. But the humans, driven by determination, moved like shadows, relying on their ability to think outside the box, something the Jarax had failed to account for. As they breached the command center, the final line of defense fell. Jarax officers, shocked by the audacity of the human attack, scrambled to activate their defenses, but it was too late. The command center systems were being overrun, their algorithms hacked by Earth's engineers who had spent days deciphering the alien technology. The flagship was in chaos, its once mighty command structure crumbling under the weight of the resistance. With a resounding pulse, the Jarax's centralized communications network flickered and shut down, leaving the alien fleet in disarray. The once dominant war machines, without orders or coordination, began to falter. Ships drifted aimlessly in the sky, and the alien forces on the ground were left confused and vulnerable. It was a moment of pure chaos for the invaders, one that had been impossible without the courage, ingenuity, and sacrifice of those who had infiltrated the flagship. The tide had turned. Back on Earth, the news of the flagship's downfall spread like wildfire. Humanity's victory was not just a symbol of hope. It was the moment the Jarax realized they had misjudged Earth. They had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt and survive in the face of overwhelming odds. The battle for Earth was far from over, but without their command structure, the Jarax forces were fragmented and incapable of mounting a coherent offensive. The resistance across the globe, emboldened by the success, launched their final wave of attacks. Cities that had once been devastated began to rise again. As humanity took back control of their cities, their borders, and their future, the Jarax forces began to retreat, their once unshakable resolve crumbling under the pressure of humanity's unyielding will. In the aftermath of the battle, Earth stood as a beacon of resilience. The Jarax may have had superior technology, but humanity had something they couldn't replicate: an unbreakable spirit. Earth had fought back not just with weapons, but with their hearts, their minds, and their refusal to give in. The war was over. The invaders had been repelled. Earth had survived. And as the sun rose on a new dawn, humanity knew one thing for certain: they would never again be caught unprepared. The lessons learned in the heat of battle would shape a new world, one built on unity, resilience, and the unwavering belief that when the stakes are high, humanity's greatest weapon is its unrelenting hope.